Okay, so you're probably asking yourself, why have I been chosen for this talk? Why has God permitted me to speak on this? Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls in this place, over more than 10 years ago, I almost became a priest in a satanic cult. And I come to speak to you about why we Christians should not celebrate October 31st, Halloween, the famous day for kids, which Satan has wanted to hijack. The festival for kids and for candy is actually in April, not in October. So anyways, in my adolescence, being a very timid and shy kid, I fell in love with a girl with green eyes, very beautiful. In my shyness, I fell in love with that girl with green eyes. I saw something in her. She would go to the corner of the neighborhood and have a good time with her friends. And everything that anyone from that group said, they would do. But I never really paid them any attention. In my shyness, every day I would just watch her from my window and just marvel at her beauty. But no more. Until one day, she introduced herself to me. She knocked on my front door. She said, "Come out." And I was like, wow, she likes me. That was it for me. She likes me. As days went by, we started getting to know one another. And then one day she tells me, "Let's go to a party." And I'm like, oh, this is awesome. She even has money to go party. So I'm like, all right, let's go. So I got permission and I went. We got to the corner of the neighborhood. And I'm like, okay, where's the party at? We went to the neighborhood. It was called the neighborhood of France. We got to a big house. And when we opened the door, there was a dark hallway. I was like, okay, I guess no one turned on the lights. We went inside, and when everyone was at the end of the hallway, each person started putting on a cassock with a hood. And I'm like, okay. I've always been very skeptical of things. I've been the type that had to put my finger inside the wound to make sure it was real. So I'm like, cool, I'm going to enter into a party for witches. That was the last week of September. And coming close to October, I'm like, okay. So they gave me the cassock, which was my size. And I was holding on to the hand of this girl the whole time. That I didn't let go for anything. When you're young, your first love, you never forget that. And wherever she goes, you go. So we went inside. I saw the living room and a really big dining room, very elegant. And there was a dining table with 12 spots. There were 12 candles, 12 cups of water. So I was thinking, okay, we're going to have dinner. In my innocence, that's what I thought. We're going to have dinner before the party. There's nothing strange. So we started sitting down around this dining room table when this guy in the back started speaking in a really strange language. Inside of me, the first thing I thought to myself, my gosh, this is going to be the first time I'm going to smoke marijuana. Because this guy's speaking in such a strange language. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. So my girlfriend told me, calm down, relax. Then when each person started responding to him in the same language, so I'm thinking to myself, okay, here it is. I'm going to smoke my first joint. I'm going to try it. Later, though, after having spoken a lot in that language, I was very quiet. I hadn't realized that in the center of the table, there was drawn a Ouija board with human blood. And the corresponding objects of that Ouija board started turning in a counterclockwise fashion. Well, I already had some knowledge of the Ouija board. I had seen it by television, what it is, but I never thought that I would be right in front of it, seeing it with my own eyes. And then the glasses of water on the dining room table started levitating 12 centimeters off the table. And I kind of got scared, and I stopped holding hands with the people around me. Normally in those circles, you have to be holding hands, but I let go and I tried running my hands above and below that glass of water to see where the nylons were that were lifting up that glass, but there were none. Then suddenly, the table levitated. We took steps back from the table, and then the table levitated. And I actually went under the table to see if there was some mechanism that was lifting the table up. There was none. Then I panicked. When I tried to run, a voice behind me said, "If you run away, I'll kill you." Due to those words, the only thing that I could do was stay put. The very act of entering the front door at the beginning inducted me into Satanism. There was no way to go back. I'm going to give you background. For Satanists, October 31st is their new year. That begins the new satanic year. The same way we celebrate December 31st with pork, with all this food, and we dance and we get drunk. For Satanists, 31st of October is the same thing. And so, the preparation for October 31st happens 5 weeks before, beginning with the last week of September and all the weeks of October. Look, when I saw all that power that they had to levitate those things, inside of me began rising up something like a drug, like wanting to know. I wanted to know how that satanic priest was able to levitate all those things. And I became completely immersed in all that stuff. I started reading satanic books, books of curses. When the leader had come out, he came out with a big black book in his hands. It was the Satanic Bible. And so I began wanting to know so much that Satan gave me the power in 3 months to be able to speak Italian, Aramaic, Hebrew, and many dead languages that usually take priests many years to learn. And he also gave me something else. He gave me the power to control the human mind. What does that mean? That through curses, he gave me the way to control other people so that they would do what I wanted them to do. So with those powers, since I felt like Superman and I had all these powers, my thirst for knowledge was so big that I ended up being the second in command in this sect. What did I need to do in order to be the first in command? A human sacrifice of a child in gestation of 5 to 6 months. I needed to do that. I stalled until the 3rd year. I never got to do the human sacrifice by God's mercy. And so in that first week, as I mentioned, you have to stand before a wall and begin to do curses, chants, songs, music that can be found on the internet of black masses in which you pronounce the number 666. And you do this consecutively all the days of the week until the devil that has come into you manifests itself to you in a shadow. And it's able to touch you, an amorphous being. When you're finally seeing that, and when the satanic priest notices that you're able to see your interior demon, he takes you from there and takes you to the 2nd level. You begin with sacrifices, basic ones, frogs, rabbits, and to drink blood and to eat hearts so that you can continue. Let me explain something to you. Those who belong to the 12, that there are 12 imitating our Lord Jesus Christ with his 12 apostles, Because Jesus Christ is the eternal priest, right? And so his 12 disciples, which were his 12 that would continue the gospel. So Satan does the same. He has to have 12 privileged disciples and then the satanic priest. That group of the 12 always have to keep a low profile, meaning they're not going to paint their rooms black, they're not going to dress in black, they're not going to change their way of being before society. But the ones that they do bring in as their successors in that group, their subjects, as I call them, those are the ones that listen to all that weird music. They put on makeup in a weird way. They shut themselves in their rooms. This is all part of the process, fulfilling the requirements in order to progress in the hierarchy of the satanic sect. We would do all sorts of sacrifices. We would meet at this place called Adanea. The cemetery was close to us, so we would commit sacrileges in the tombs. St. Stephen, the Sultana, and the summit. We would find a place in the mountains to be isolated so we could do all these spells. In the second week, they would ask the subjects to prove themselves, ladies and gentlemen. For Satanists, it was so important. It's like to say that Jesus Christ is really present in the Eucharist. The greatest test for them was, go get a consecrated host. For what? So that at that week, they would begin to urinate and defecate on the host, and with that same liquid, they would baptize themselves and consecrate themselves to Satan. And you had to do it. And so for a Satanist to go and steal the Eucharist and do what he had to do, so inside of me there was something. I was thinking to myself, if I have so much power, how come every time we try to do something against the church, why is there so much rejection? Why is the Catholic Church so powerful? Because when we did things against Protestant churches or garage churches, it was so easy to attack them. And so inside of me, a doubt started growing. But at the same time, Satan would try to blind me and say, just do it. In the third week, you had to be completely naked within the sect, and you had to participate in all sorts of orgies. The only one who had the right to impregnate a woman inside the satanic sect was the priest. A normal member of the satanic sect that would impregnate one of the women would be sacrificed. So they had to be careful. The only one who had the right to do that was the priest. For what purpose? Through some well-established dates, they would choose who would offer up their son for the maximum sacrifice on the 31st. They would choose that person 5 or 6 months in advance. They would have sex, and that week, that woman would be treated like a goddess. They would fulfill her every wish and command. And if she didn't like somebody inside the sect, they would bring that person to the head boss. The same thing if she didn't like some other girl inside the sect. And so whatever she asked, they would do. So why is it that we had to be naked? Something the Spirit revealed to me. I give thanks to God for giving me this vision. What happened when Adam and Eve messed things up in the Garden of Eden? What happened? And what happened with them? And what else? They hid, right? We messed things up, so now we hide. It just so happens that this body, this thing that worms will eventually eat up when we die, is a temple of the Holy Spirit. Since it is a work of God, and so Satan has to attack God's works. So the more orgies that are committed, the more drugs you do, the more you do bad things against that temple, the more you're destroying that temple that God has given us, that work of God. The greater the destruction against that temple, the greater the condemnation you're going to have. So what happened when Adam and Eve had to face God? How did they come out? Covered, right? Why? So why do Satanists have to be covered up in their hoods and cassocks? Because they want to hide from God. So how come on the 31st we put on masks? Why don't we just go and ask for candy without any masks? Ladies and gentlemen, just the very act of putting on a disguise on October 31st, you are participating in the greatest spell that occurs on a worldwide level on that day. And you're giving power to these Satanists so they can feed off of this power and commit many, many sacrifices. The time is not 12 midnight as usually depicted in horror movies. But for sure, 90% of those horror movies are produced by satanic priests, so that the spells that they apply in those movies and all the things that they do, it will be just as it's applied in the satanic ritual book. And here's another little pearl for you. If your children watch Harry Potter, the spells that the kid is saying are exactly as they're written in the satanic ritual book. The first time I sat down to watch the first Harry Potter movie, in the moment when Harry is in the dining room and a serpent speaks to him, those are some of the most powerful spells that appear in the satanic ritual book. And kids love watching that movie, and they're repeating those words of the spell. Ladies and gentlemen, obviously we didn't know that. We as parents, we would never have imagined this, but it's a reality. The author of those books and the one that is producing all these movies, she belongs to the Association of Satanists at a worldwide level. She's one of the 12 principal witches. How is Satanism being supported today? Through these movies, because the boom that they've had has been very great. But this is an innocent kid with glasses. But look, how many kids in the world have been killed trying to repeat the spell for the flying broom? Many. But we're kind of like, and we let things pass. And we say it's just a tradition, and what's wrong with my kid dressing up as a priest or a policeman or an angel? There's nothing wrong in that, and he's not going to participate in any of those evil things. It's right there in the Bible, in the book of Hosea. My people perish for lack of knowledge. And because of that lack of knowledge, we participate in these rituals and in these evil things. But right now, fortunately, in communities like these, we're waking up that Halloween must end. Right now, it might be difficult to tell a little kid, no, don't dress up for Halloween because it's evil. How are we going to tell them? But we can come up with strategies or come up with something. This is something that we have to do all our lives. It's very hard to take it away just like that, but we can strive for it. You tell them, if you don't dress up, I'll double your presents in December. We have to come up with something. Look, Halloween translates to the day before All Saints' Day in English, right? But the same way we translate from English to Spanish, the satanic language also exists. And Halloween in satanic language means, may Satan be exalted. And kids begin to repeat this. Then they say, trick or treat. Where does that come from? Trick or treat. A treat or a trick, right? But for Satanists, it's give me what I want or I'll put a spell on you. How many times are kids repeating trick or treat on a worldwide level? And not only kids, unfortunately, adults are the ones that most participate in Halloween parties on the 31st. I could go on. The third week, they have to do the satanic baptisms, and they have to commit sacrileges against the body and blood of Jesus Christ. In that third week, you start to feel the power from the blood. And they begin to do blood pacts When you begin offering yourself to Satan, he starts giving you power. To the measure that you start growing, you feel like a god, and you want more. In that week, confessions of wrongdoings against Satan are made. Imagine Satan as a confessor. And they curse any type of contact with a Christian. They attack them if possible. And in Satanism, they apply witchcraft if possible. They go into the person's house, sit on their chest, pull on their leg, pull off their covers, do all that stuff if possible. And they do it. And even more so now with more power. In the fourth week, well, that's as far as I got. In the fourth week, you have to do an animal sacrifice. It could be a cow or something like that. In my case, when I did it for the first time, it was a black cat. I got the black cat, I stabbed him with a dagger and drank its blood and ate its heart. Yeah, you can't cook it. It would have been easier if you could have flipped it around and cooked it, but no. This is a sad reality. Right there, I had given 90% of my soul to Satan. What more was left? The human sacrifice. And my companions and everyone else would say to me, "Hey man, just do it. You have even more power than the satanic priests. Do it. You already know how to speak the languages. Do it. Go to the next level. Be our boss." They were proud of me. Of course, I wanted to be boss, but I still had to come into position as one of the 12 in order to continue the work of Satan. But the first time that I had to witness a child sacrifice, it was the saddest thing. To see how this disgraceful person took out the child by the legs and nailed a dagger in his heart. And he split him open in the middle and took out all his inner body parts and then ate his heart. That was impacting. Question: does the woman know they're going to kill the baby? It's a voluntary offering. Remember when I told you 6 months prior they do a spell in which they elect which woman is going to be impregnated. Why do they have to be members of the same satanic sect? Because they have to avoid any suspicion before society, and everything has to be hidden. So there is no statistical data that that woman is pregnant. And in her house, how does she hide her pregnancy? Well, with belts and all sorts of things. And also remember, they're able to dominate the human mind so they can make the family think that everything is normal. If you want later, we'll do questions. Yes, a drug is taken to induce the child. The hours for any type of physical attack is between 3 and 5 in the morning. All the spells, everything having to do with evil, has to occur between 3 and 5 in the morning. If the child isn't born before 5 a.m. in the morning, they have to open the woman's belly, a voluntary C-section. And the sacrifice is 2 for 1 because the mother is killed immediately. And so the power that Satan would give that night would be even greater because the sacrifice was 2 for the price of 1. An innocent soul. I participated 2 years in that. And the 3rd year, I had to do the sacrifice. I couldn't stall any longer. I had to do it. I was next on the list, and I had to carry it out. But God took me out of there, and I'm going to tell you how. In the 5th week, prior to the 31st, the week in which we're in is the week in which most kids go missing and pets go missing. Why? Because when there are satanic priests that weren't able to impregnate a woman on time, they have to go out and find women who are 5 to 6 months pregnant, bring them so they can carry out their deed. And this is the week where the most blood is shed. I pray a lot every night for all the souls that are going to have to suffer through this. Every day they have to have a sacrifice prior to the most important sacrifice, which is the mother that's pregnant. The 31st of October comes. Everything is organized. All the members have to register in the satanic book. The satanic year begins, and they begin to invoke spirits. Oh, let me talk to you about the minor ones. Beelzebul, Nostradamus, and Satan himself. So much is invoked on that day. On the 1st of November, they seal all the Satanists with water from the sewer. Everything is voluntary. There is nothing that is against the will of the person. And if the mother has been able to survive the great sacrifice, between the 1st and 9th of November is the week of the wedding with Satan, and they offer completely. The woman supposedly marries Satan. Different evil spirits enter into her. The ceremony takes place similar to that in the Catholic Church, but except with the satanic ritual book of the goat and with a blood pact. And how did I get out of all this, you may ask? I fell in love again. Another new girl came to the neighborhood. I was fascinated by her. I liked her. And so this girl with green eyes, I was like, no more. Get away from me. I've been with you for more than 2 years now. I'm bored of you. And I became obsessed with this new woman. I was obsessed with her in this way. All the spells that I tried to put on this girl, they didn't work. So big was my obsession with this woman that I went to ask the satanic priest for help. Help me so that this woman falls in love with me. I haven't been able to control her mind. I put her mother to sleep in the yard. I scratched up her father's back. I knocked over things in their house so that they would be scared, and that way I could try to make her mine. But it didn't work. There's someone just jealous of us. Let's just keep praying. That's what she kept saying. Let's just keep praying. So we did the spells with the satanic priest. It didn't work. Since my obsession was so big, so I got an appointment to go see the satanic bishop of the area, which was located in Pereira. So I told him, I've done this and that, and nothing has worked. So he said, oh, I've heard a lot of these types of cases. Let's do this. I was able to get some underwear, some of her hair, some dirt from a cemetery, all types of things, but it didn't work. So next, the bishop tells me, find out what she likes most and try to become what she most likes. Transform yourself. What does transformation mean for a Satanist? It's to take off your satanic mentality and try to become a good boy. So I started investigating what she liked. Rosary at 6 in the morning, every single day. Mass at 7 in the morning, every day. Rosary 7 p.m. at night, every day. So I'm like, okay, I like her, so I'll do it. I didn't know what I was getting into. So she started getting to know me. Come with me. Okay. Come with me to Mass. Okay, let's go. That girl was a girl who wouldn't sit in the back or in the middle. She always had to sit right in front before the Blessed Sacrament, right at the front. So I would come into the church, sit next to her. Look, sitting there, all the pores of my body, it was like needles were piercing through them. It was so much that I just told the girl, I have an upset stomach, I gotta go. I'll pick you up right after Mass is over, okay? We'll talk later. I needed to go. And so I'd wait outside. And at the moment that the priest lifted up the consecrated host with so much love, this is my body, I had to get out of there. Because what I felt was a complete disgust against that. I felt like I would go back, but like levitating backwards. I had to run out of there. She would go on with her life as normal, but I was obsessed with her, and I couldn't do anything more. She had these fabulous ideas. She used to go to a prayer group in the cathedral on Saturday. It was her perfect plan. 7 p.m. at night to pray the rosary in the cathedral. And this beautiful woman would have this fabulous idea. She'd say, I'm going to pray for the salvation of your soul. With such tenderness, she would say it. And I'm like, okay, sure, whatever. I don't believe in any of that. Well, gentlemen, there you have it. Fathers, mothers, that's the importance of intercessory prayer. Because as this woman started praying for me, Satan started sending me the bill of what I owed him. Because Satan is like, yeah, my brother, I'll give you some power, but I need something in return. You haven't done that human sacrifice yet. What's going on? Render an account of what you owe me. I've given you so much, and you've given me much less. I'm at a loss. I'm not breaking even. And so then Satan started driving me crazy. And so I started hearing voices that would say the following: kill yourself. We're going to kill you. Sacrifice yourself. I'd be driving down 23, hearing those words. I'd go by a building and hear, go up the building. There'd be a car driving really fast and I'd hear, jump in front of it. It was demonic obsession. And obviously, the power he had given me began to diminish. For what purpose? In order to bring me to make that human sacrifice as quickly as possible in order to regain that power that I once had. I was no longer able to control human minds. I would try to speak in the languages I needed to speak in order to cast spells, but I wasn't able to. And so one day of great despair, where so many voices in my head kept sounding more and more, I ended up at the house of a great man of God, a Marian man. His name was Henry Moncado Bache. A man that, to me, he's almost a saint, so devoted to the Virgin Mary. Without even knowing where he lived, I ended up at his front door. He opens the door and says to me, my son, I've been waiting for you. I've been waiting for you. For a long time, I've had this perception of you. All the while, the voices in my head would tell me, don't enter, we're going to kill you. Don't enter, because we're going to kill you. So this man took me by the neck and pulled me into his house, and as soon as he did that, we hear knocking and nail scratching on the front door. In broad daylight this happened, and this man started invoking Saint Michael the Archangel in such an impressive way and started spraying holy water everywhere. He said, my son, let's wait till the tide passes, because what's going to happen to you is going to be big. And he grabbed me and put me into a taxi, and he brought me to the church of the Claretians. And there was another holy man of God, the greatest exorcist that the city of Manizales has had, in my opinion. Father Hector Ochoa, may he rest in peace, he's now in God's glory. And that battle began. 3 demons came out of me from the first level of power of Satan. They were very big. The exorcism took hours, and I even attacked the life of the priest. I don't remember when that happened. What the professor tells me is that when the priest would speak to me in Aramaic, I would respond in Aramaic. They would speak in Italian, and I would respond. In Hebrew, and I would respond. And my eyes were completely red. It was a scary battle. There was a moment of tranquility, and then all this stuff came out of me. There was a moment in which I thought I was doomed. And this priest began crying, and each tear that would fall on my body would make smoke come out from there. The holiness of this man was impressive. And as he cried, smoke would come out of me, a foul smell would come out, a putrid emanation was coming out of you, they told me. It was as if all the stuff that I had done was coming out of me and vaporizing from me. And so this new stage began. I came out. I was condemned. 90% of my soul was given over to Satan. Practically 99%. How am I going to reintegrate back into society? I began a new stage in my life, and the priest told me, My son, first go to confession, then profess your faith again, and as your penance, go and ask forgiveness to all the people that you wronged. I got slapped more than 40 times, seeking humility, looking to receive all that forgiveness. Time went by, and my friends from the satanic sect, they figured out what happened since I hadn't come back to the meetings. And so Satan's order is, let's kill him violently. But they can't do it with a gun. They have to do it through spells and by knife. And so they started waging a war against my family. They started attacking them, and they began attacking me spiritually. In my house, they would start moving my things and do all the same things that I used to do. And so one day at the prayer group, when I started trying to pray my first rosary, just to say Hail Mary was really hard for me. That day, the satanic priest appeared at the door of the prayer group. I've come for you. You know what this is. I would tell the girl that was helping me to get out of there, pray for me, pray for me, pray for me. What are you going to do? Just pray for me. Parents, look at the importance of blessing your children. You have no idea how important it is, the transcendental nature of it. And sometimes for petty reasons, such as your child didn't eat their dinner, right? For little things, we neglect to bless them. We don't even say, my child, God bless you, not even from a distance. Don't let them leave without their blessing. And guys and girls, ask your parents for their blessing. Do it. Because the power that God has given them as a parent to give their child a blessing is so great. It's to invoke their angel to accompany them. And many times we let our children leave our house as they are. This emo generation that we're seeing right now is a generation that's directed towards suicide, and voluntarily so. There's some that are naturally depressed. That's a demon of depression that goes in their hearts. And so what did I have to do? Take all that satanic knowledge that I had in my head, because God has left me something, and I put it at His service, because I'm able to know when satanic spells have been applied. God allows me to see when people are contaminated with certain demonic spirits. So at that time, I had to take all that satanic knowledge that I had and go confront that satanic priest. And I began to engage in a spiritual battle. So I began applying witchcraft and spells. And at the moment when I was almost about to be beaten and the guy was about to win, I began to hear behind me, Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Every time stronger and stronger, so much so that the guy was frozen. Look, what happens in the spiritual realm, if someone attacks you in the spirit and they beat you, the body receives it. The body gets attacked. That satanic priest gave me a really nasty beating. And in the moment when he was just about to finish me off, from behind me came this white hand. And it was beautiful. And with those voices praying the rosary, wow. And then rays came out and went to where that satanic priest was, and they wound around him like a serpent and left him in this position, and then he fell back. Then that hand lifted me up and brought me back into my body. I left really hurt and beaten and went back to my house. And I was trying to hide things, of course, because my mom had found out what had happened after the exorcism, all that I had done in the last 3 years. So I got restored, I went to confession, and I've been walking on this path with the Lord ever since then. So what am I trying to say? Participating in Halloween goes against the first commandment. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, We sin out of ignorance because we didn't have any knowledge. I only did it because it was tradition and my kid looked really cute as an angel, etc. Remember that just by the act of giving or receiving candy, you are participating in the spell. By dressing up in the costume, you're participating in the spell of that day. No, but my kid is not participating in that. No, you are participating in it. It's something that's obviously hidden to the eyes of the world, but in the spiritual realm, it's occurring. So what am I calling you to do? That in our homes, we should stop celebrating Halloween. We can begin by telling our kids, October 31st is not the day for children, but rather it's in April, Easter, and we should celebrate that day as best as we can, so that in their minds they can begin to see that Easter is more important. Sadly, schools are the ones that promote Halloween the most. It's very sad. We have to go evangelize our schools. That's our work, long and arduous work. Remember that God says that our battle is not against flesh and blood, but against spirits that are wandering through the earth. And they do exist, and it's a reality. And Satan has been so clever as to not appear with horns and a tail. Rather, he's made it so that kids don't even believe in his existence. Nowadays, kids sit down and watch movies with demons, get contaminated by demons, and us, the parents, we're unaware. Anyhow, I invite you all tonight to invoke Saint Michael the Archangel, and that we may begin blessing our children. And children, start asking your parents to bless you. May God bless you all. If you have any questions, I'm going to be here on the side. God bless you all. Another question. Oh, what happened to the girl that got me out of Satanism? She's a spouse of Christ. She's a religious. She's on mission in Japan. So please pray for her. That's why no evil was able to be done to her, because she was consecrated to God since her birth.